Good morning, everyone, and it's a hard act to follow Dr. Andrew Regan. And I want to say that back on the 12th of December, Katie Asco came to our launch in Kerry when we started Kerry Right to Life. And I will always remember when Andrew stood up and said that it was time, that he was not going to put his head in the sand, and he was going to, having listened to Katie, who was absolutely tremendous, phenomenal speaker that day, that night actually, to 200 people, who said he was going to get up and do something. And he has been doing that night and day with Dr. Siobhan, and I was glad to see her photograph on the poster across the way. And I tweeted it saying a great day for this conference. So just to say, my background is midwifery and nursing, and I teach nursing now. And one of the reasons I sort of wanted to go into teaching was because it was safer. I knew that midwifery was going to become problematic, and it certainly was problematic for me when I was in the UK. So I could see my long-term goal getting into teaching because it was some way ethically safer. So I teach nursing, but I'm lucky in that I have the maternity in University Hospital Kerry as my link, and I teach maternity to students, but I also teach an awful lot of evidence-based practice and do a lot of supervision of research in that. So I suppose really I'm talking about it from the perspective of a midwife who, yes, I am a registered midwife, and I have my link areas in maternity, but just to be mindful, I'm a lecturer in nursing and healthcare sciences in the IT in Tralee. I'd like to outline, to describe the current situation, and I think Andrew has kind of covered that very well, but it's no harm to re-emphasise some of his points. I would like to outline my experience as a midwife in the UK. I won't dwell on the third outcome too much because Mary Dugan will have expertise in that. And maybe just to highlight approaches to care and the effects of abortion on health. Okay, so May 25th, that's a day that I'm upset that it is May 25th. I had my fifth baby, probably my last. I'm almost 49. So I imagine that he was my bonus baby, and he was born on the 25th of May, so I'm not going to forget that day. And we are being asked if we wish to retain Article 40.33. And I think we cannot read this article or the Eighth Amendment enough. There is an acknowledgement of the right to life of the unborn. And I try to explain that wherever I go. I was in Sligo IT last week, and I tried to explain that it was an acknowledgement of the right to life. These rights are inalienable, imprescriptible. They are not given by the state. We have them because we are alive. And obviously, as far as practicable, that's a very important line too. Now, when the Supreme Court ruled recently on the Richard Humphreys case, Professor Binchy said the court has made it clear that unborn babies up to birth would have no constitutional protection against the legislation that the government intends to introduce. And I was at a meeting on Thursday night, and a daughter of one of our legal advisors made the point that really, if that was to be taken out of the Constitution, any discussion after that really is quite immaterial, because they can do whatever they like. The unborn child has no right to life. And that, to me, is really the crux here. There is no right to life. And, you know, they want to put in this line, and it's interesting, the whole debate was that abortion shouldn't be in the Constitution. It's not in the Constitution, but then the government wants to put in a line, provision may be made by law for the regulation of the termination of pregnancy. And I think it behoves us to keep explaining to people that line doesn't mean ending the pregnancies. All of our pregnancies ended in labour or by C-section or whatever. It means a medical procedure which is intended to end the life of the fetus. And it's important that you get the 28 pages on the general scheme of a bill to regulate termination of pregnancy. Obviously, this can be changed at will, but the important point here is Obviously, I want to see that Article 40.33 remain in the Constitution. But to think the definition there, medical procedure intended to end the life of the fetus. And I was thinking about a woman. Now, my sister was expecting a baby, she won't mind me saying this, and she didn't realise she was pregnant until she was 22 weeks. Imagine if you didn't know you were pregnant until you were about 27 weeks, and it was a case of rape, and you wanted to have a termination of pregnancy. You go for a termination of pregnancy, it's intended to end the life of the fetus. So I don't know how that sits with the thing about viability, because really the unborn will have no rights, and removal will likely generate a constitutional right to abortion up to birth. There was a good article by Dr. Tom Finnegan recently, I think it was maybe the Sunday Times. So that is really something we need to consider here. So that worries me very much. So my experience in the UK, I did my midwifery in Northern Ireland, and I suppose there were two instances I came across. One was a situation where there was anencephaly, and that is where part of the brain, most of us are medical background, has not developed, and the baby does not usually live long after birth. But I want you to direct you to a website called anencephaly.info. Anencephaly.info. And there you will find all the stories of babies who lived for varying lengths of time post-birth, because the woman that set up that found that an awful lot of women were being pressured into aborting their babies, and she felt they weren't given the other option of, obviously some type of perinatal hospice care, love, support and compassion, and to be able to prepare for this baby, deliver this baby, and let it live as long as it's meant to live. So it has beautiful stories. So I came across a case where there was a woman admitted she was 19 weeks pregnant, and she had anencephaly, and they were inducing her. And I remember the midwife saying to me about getting involved or either checking something, and I said to her, that's an abortion that's going on there. And I said, I don't want to be involved. And she looked at me, and and then I just said, look, I'm not going to be involved in this. So that was a case I came across. And the other case I came across was in the antenatal clinic. The community midwife said to me, oh look, there's a girl here, she's very, very distressed. She's pregnant, she doesn't know what to do. Will you talk to her? I don't know why she asked me, but I got to talk to this girl, beautiful young girl. She was Protestant, and her boyfriend was Catholic, and her boyfriend's parents were putting her under pressure to abort the baby. So I said to her, look, I will meet you again. I met her outside of the hospital environment in Derry, and we had a good chat. And her sister was a midwife in Canada and didn't have children. I said, can you confide in her? So we had a great chat, and then she said to me one day, I hate the dentist. I really have a phobia about the suction in the dentist. And I was among baby clothes one day, she said, and this thought came over me, and she said, I wasn't going to abort my baby. And she went on to have that baby. She broke up with the boyfriend, and things were very different for her. Then in London, I didn't know this at the time, and can I just say, there is so much pain, so much suffering, so much hurt, so much anger, so much guilt out there. And many of us have had experiences, miscarriages, stillbirths. Many of us know people who've had abortions, and we are in a very difficult place trying to reach those people and to be, sensitive to their pain. A lot of them didn't do this out of choice. So in where I worked, my base was labour ward, but I used to be teaching my students as well, both in the college and on the labour ward. And I didn't know before I went, but the hospital was one of two, I think, that is left now that do late-term abortions up to birth. So my first situation, encounter with that was I heard that there was a lady over from Europe and I could speak the language. And I always remember she was absolutely beautiful looking. I'm not just saying, but she was beautiful looking. And I said to the labour ward sister, and I can see it as clear today as it was maybe 20 odd years ago. I said, oh, I have the language, I could look after this lady. And I said to the lady, oh, you know, I can look after you and I have some of the language. And she looked at me and she was so delighted. And then the next thing is I came out of the room and I said to the labour ward sister, what is she here for? Oh, she's here for a feticide. And I said, what's a feticide? Oh, she said, they inject the baby with potassium chloride into the heart. You know, they go up to her, I won't say the name of the 9th floor, and then they come down and they deliver. And she's 28 weeks and the baby has brittle bone disease. And all I can, to this day, I was absolutely so shocked and nearly nauseous, and I was so conflicted. And I just often think that because this was so shocking to me, I didn't know what to say. And I said, you know what, my language, my command of the language isn't very good. And it reminds me of almost like Peter when he denied Christ. I just said, I think I look after somebody else today. And I came across several of these situations where I looked after the woman after the delivery, or she was delivering, and they think sometimes, the women, that they're going to deliver a baby that is some kind of monster, and they don't realise that the abnormalities are internal. So they deliver a very, very beautiful looking baby. There was on the RTE Sean O'Rourke show during the week a woman describing this, and if any of you want to listen back to it, it is something that's quite chilling. And then it was interesting, I had a difficult time from a labour ward sister who, they kept telling me it wasn't me personally, that she was having issues with a lot of people. So when I met her one day to try and talk to her, resolve difficulties, she started talking, and then she went off on a tangent, which was nothing to do with why I was with her. And she said, those Irish midwives, she said, I'm the one that always has to go up to the ward and hold the ultrasound scanner while they do the feticides. And she said the Irish nurses or midwives won't get involved.
She doesn't want to do it.
Well, you know, this was something that came out from somebody who would have been very much an advocate for abortion. So I said to her, well, you know, that isn't why I'm here speaking to you. Sadly, that labour ward sister was found in the anaesthetic, in the theatre taking anaesthetic gases, and had not been so nice to a lady in labour. But these things happen, you know, we are human. And I know that on the ward, the day ward, every morning there would be 20 women admitted for abortion up to 24 weeks. Obviously we had them maybe with it would have been about 15 or 16 weeks, because we would have got the ladies one a week that would be up to birth. And I remember going to the perinatal meetings then, and how am I doing in time there? Am I okay? 5 minutes ago. Just to say, I went and they would read out the statistics, and one was done at 37 weeks for cleft lip, one was 39 weeks for talipes, and you can look up all of these statistics. So just, I remember one night going down to Mary Stopes, we had a woman who was admitted by A&E with hemorrhaging following a 23-week abortion in a Mary Stopes clinic, and it took a lot to resuscitate her and to remove her from danger. Selective reduction. Just to say, in 2016, 141 abortions took place where there were selective reduction. 92 cases where 2 were reduced to 1, and 33 cases were 3 down to 2. So, and I had the stats for the number of late-term abortions, 24 weeks up to birth. And as I said, I think that we are in a very, very, very dangerous territory with that definition of the termination of pregnancy. It's not ending a pregnancy, it is ending the life. The approaches to care, premature rupture of membranes, preterm premature rupture of membranes, I was used to conservative management. We had a consultant who, basically when any woman presented with this, they were very quick to want to deliver her and cited the risk of 2 minutes rupture of membranes. I had other things to talk about, but that's an interesting case there. Asylum for 2 Ukrainian doctors, where they got asylum here because there is demand for baby parts, not only in the UK or in the US, but in the Ukraine. Just to say, conscientious objection, I don't think it's worth anything. I don't think that we can in any way fall back on that. I think that it doesn't seem congruent with our standards of conduct, but having discussed it, it looks like we are not going to be able to rely on it, and certainly to have to be facilitating an abortion is something I would find unacceptable, unethical. Just to say, I think it's very important that we think about abortion and its effect on women, on society and health, and I would encourage you all to watch a documentary called hushfilm.com. I had a small clip, but I've talked too long. I believe that where there's life, there's hope. I believe we need to surround women and their babies with love and support. I had a phone call recently with a baby with a life-limiting condition. I said, if you can remove the fear by changing your attitude to one of love, it will be very, very different. And thankfully that was the case, and she went on to have another baby. So any of you who haven't watched Elliot 99 Balloons, it is certainly very beautiful. So I just say their lives are in our hands, and I would ask you to protect their right to life and vote no to abortion on demand. And I would like to thank you for listening to me.